Good morning. A child's toy is a gateway of infinite possibilities. The human mind is also a gateway of infinite transformation. Thank you. I dabbled in magic when I was a child, but as happens to so many people, magic took a step behind, it faded behind into my background when college and career, medical school, marriage took center stage. About 15 years ago, magic found its way back into my life. It had embedded itself into nearly everything I do, including teaching at the Feinberg School of Medicine here at Northwestern. Thanks to the very progressive and inclusive curriculum we have at Feinberg, I have been privileged to teach a course on medicine and magic for the past 6 years. This course has inspired me to see my own profession in a very different light. I'm pleased to share some of the ideas that I have developed over the past few years. Thank you. At its core, magic is concerned with one very central human process: transformation. At its core, medicine is about the process of human transformation. Let me give you a very intimate, personal story that illustrates this point. We were standing in front of the hospital when my brother looked at me and said, "I feel like I'm going into my sentencing." I smiled at him and held his arm encouragingly. You see, as a physician, I had stood in that spot and entered through those doors many times before. I knew the difference between this world and that world, but you see, this was the first time I was walking in playing the other role. I was hoping to see transformation, despite the difficult diagnosis we knew was about to come. The night before, I had rehearsed a session in my mind several times. I had rehearsed him too. The next day in the room, unexpectedly, the young physician entered without her supervisor. Without a word of warning, she uttered the dreaded diagnosis. She was smiling. Her face was completely disconnected to the meaning of her words. Without giving us a moment's pause, she began to blurt out data, statistics, information. It's as if she was trying to suck out every molecule of silence in the room so that we would not interrupt her rehearsed but not too good soliloquy. Never was the fourth wall, you know, that imaginary space between performer and audience, never was that fourth wall more palpable than in this medical encounter. She was like a young child doing her first recital, couldn't wait to get it over with. But the recital was long and cold. I stopped it. I stopped that script. I stopped that bad performance. And I worked the narrative back to the better script, the therapeutic script, the one where my brother walked out of there transformed, but empowered despite the adversity. You see, I'm a neonatologist. I take care of premature babies by training. I've had my share of difficult conversations. We've shed a lot of tears of sorrow and happiness together. But it wasn't until I entered and studied the theatrical arts of magic that I realized what was going on. Every conversation, every encounter, every crisis was a performance that was unfolding around us, and we were the active players. And so at that moment, I realized that though the might of medicine is science, at its heart, medicine is a performance art. In the universe of performance, two individuals walk into a room, empty, an empty space devoid of intrinsic meaning. And in that space, they bring rich narratives. A veil is lifted, a ritual is performed, and the invisible becomes visible, bringing meaning and hopefully transformation to everyone, including the performers. You might begin to see that to me, a medical encounter seems like a magic performance. Patients enter an empty space, an empty room, like my brother and I did that day. They bring in their narrative, who they love, what they want to get out of life, but the veil is already pierced, and they can see a different narrative, the one maybe they did not want to walk through. The physician enters the room, as I have on multiple occasions, and we bring in our narrative as well. But what narrative shows up that day? Is it one of distraction, of impatience, or is it one of mindfulness and commitment? Together, the patient and the physician, sometimes with others in tow, begin to interact. A script becomes a ritual, and the physician guides the patient in a journey of discovery, verbal and otherwise. Pretty soon, the props in the room begin to matter, and the invisible becomes visible. That stethoscope, a collection of membranes and tubing and metal, becomes a beautiful crystal ball through which we can see potential futures. Why does my chest hurt? Why is he yellow? Why is she coughing? Our threatened narrative does not seek limited answers to these questions. It actually wants meaning, because through meaning and meaning alone can we achieve transformation. For thousands of years, healers have understood the therapeutic value of interpretive medicine. In his writings, the celebrated French anthropologist Claude Lévi-Strauss described three elements that were present in every healing ceremony throughout the world and throughout time. And he coined them the shamanistic complex. The first one is the healer. The healer must believe that they are capable of helping the patient. This is very frequently manifested as a terrible journey of enlightenment. It's known as the call. We have that today. It's medical school and residency. And then you put the diplomas and everybody can see you've been through it. But for Lévi-Strauss's purposes, this is the physician's narrative, the healer's narrative that matters. Second is the patient and the fact that it's equally essential for their experience to be important. It's the ritual, whether it's diagnostic or therapeutic. It's when the physician or the healer and the patient touch and a bond of trust is created. And third is what Lévi-Strauss termed the necessity of public consensus. Today, we call it Yelp. But in those days, what happened is that most of the healing ceremonies were publicly witnessed. Now, people didn't believe that the patient was going to get better, but often they did. And when that happened, everyone rallied around the healer. Curiously, the more power they gave to the healer, the more empowered the community became, leaving Lévi-Strauss to conclude that shamans were not powerful healers because they could cure. They could cure because they were regarded as powerful healers, lending credit to the notion that belief plays an important role in medicine. Now, many err on the side of thinking that belief plays a role in the biological processes in our mind, and that leads to placebo effect. And while that might be true, that's not what Levi-Strauss was saying. He was saying that narrative and ritual are the activators of belief that give meaning and transformation. And as I said earlier, magic is absolutely about transformation. But there always is a price to be paid. Thank you. How did he do that? How did he do that? Will you teach me that trick? See, that's the question my medical students ask me the first day of classes. And of course they should, because medical school absolutely is about learning how it's done. The medical curriculum is aimed at teaching us how it's done. Still, it is my hope that by the end of the course, that many have developed an appreciation beyond the technique and beyond the outcome. You see, you might know how these effects are done. You might even be able to do them. But does that make you any more of a magician? And so too in medicine. We should think that medicine is a performance art because it's not just concerned with outcome or with technique. Now, don't get me wrong, technique, there is no medicine without technique. And there is no outcome without, and there is no health without outcome. We need both. But humans don't arrive industrially and predictably at outcomes. In fact, they take a million pathways, some of them incredibly mysterious. Many people underestimate the value of these old notions. To them, in a somewhat reductionistic view, medicine concerns itself only with that which is palpable and provable. And their quest is the process of creating technology able to elucidate that information. In that world, the patient's narrative is worthless. In that world, the physician's narrative is worthless because it's only about data. Ritual, which is about transformation, becomes reduced to an exercise in efficient data gathering and data management. If we're not careful, the medical interaction can become a medical transaction. Okay, you've got the data because you're the patient. Cough it up. I know what to do with it. I'll tell you what to do, and she'll pay. Medicine is not a transaction. Medicine is, above all, an interaction. Recent studies show decreased empathy among medical students, decreased empathy among physicians and other health professionals. The standing of the physician and the health profession in society is decreased as measured by economic and sociocultural indicators. Patients and physicians don't trust each other, and everyone in the system is more demoralized. All of these symptoms have the same root cause: the fact that the practice of medicine might be becoming an outcome-based transaction. But here, my friends, is how we can change that. 3 things. First, let's marry scientific objectivity with humanistic knowledge. Because medicine isn't a box in which you have to take out narrative and ritual so that you can put in metrics and cutting-edge technology. No, medicine is a performance art. It's alive, organic, and can fit both. Second, let's teach beyond technique. Let's teach beyond outcome. Let's teach ritual. My friend Abraham Verghese at Stanford is creating a program aimed at rekindling the importance of bedside medicine. And that, my friends, is essential. But we shouldn't only be learning how to do the rituals. We should be learning why they matter. Take magic. You can learn a trick. You can learn an effect. You can even learn how it works, the neurobiology of magic. But I find that the most compelling question is a different one altogether. That question is, why is magic still relevant today in the 21st century? At the heart of that question lies the question about why medicine still needs these things, because both magic and medicine are humanistic endeavors. Finally, we need to understand power and empowerment, meaning and transformation. Let me give you a quick example. As a magician, I can choose whoever I want to be. I can be the powerful sorcerer, the victim, the witness, the sage that enables. That is the narrative, my friends, that I choose to write for myself in my performances. As a physician, I also have the choice of writing my own narrative. Therein lies the most beautiful small idea. Hey, doctor, when you walk into that room, are you going to perform? And what narrative will you write for yourself? So friends, I invite you all to retake your narrative as patients and physicians, to dare enter the room as performers, not observers, to participate in ritual, and to give respect and honor to the process with time, mindfulness, and commitment. Study power and share empowerment. And finally, fill that empty space with meaning and transformation. Empty space. The patient, the healer, the healer's narrative, the patient's narrative, the ritual, illness, knowledge, performance, belief. We have in our hands all the elements, and they are entrusted to us so that we can preserve the form and function of humanity. Perhaps the question for today is the following one. Can a system like this be able to tolerate a big idea? No. But sometimes, yes. And perhaps for those of us here in this room, the even bigger question is, can we, you and I, dream up an even bigger big idea? And can we make it fit in the system? Empty space. Narrative. Ritual. The thing about big ideas, wondrous creatures that they are, is that at their heart, they generate beautiful chaos, enriching us with meaning and transformation. Thank you.